After a brief sabbatical spent peeking under the hood of Chevrolet's Cosworth Vega, I'm back, and this time I'll be taking a look at the LJ Toranas and the blink and you missed them TAs. Production of the LC Torana ended in February 1972, paving the way for the LJ series, which would remain in production until March 1974. This would also mark the end of the Torana's second generation. The LJ models underwent minimal body modifications, staying true to their original design. However, they were updated with a facelift and some notable refinements. While sharing a similar style grille with the LC Torana, the 6-cylinder models adopted a distinct egg crate pattern. This change, with the removal of the LC's central dividing bar, gave them a noticeable resemblance to the Holden HQ. Meanwhile, the 4-cylinder models retained their characteristic split grille design, but now with a flatter fascia. However, the rear of both the 4 and 6-cylinder cars received the same new modular 3-piece taillight assemblies. To resolve the frequent complaints about the bouncing sensation in the LC series, Holden engineers addressed this and redesigned the seats for the LJs. These became more bucket-esque, and adjustable head restraints were introduced for the first time since the Torana's inception in 1969. Given the impressive power of some of the earlier 6-cylinder models, this marked a significant safety enhancement. While the instrument panel remained largely unchanged, the droopy fascia that surrounded it was replaced with a smooth, continuous padded line running the full width of the car. Interior trim materials varied by model, with roebuck vinyl used on the S, long grain vinyl in the SL, and houndstooth or herringbone inserts featuring on the GTR. Many of these elements, along with other features of the Torana, were designed to align with the larger HQ series, which itself had been introduced in mid-1971. The radio was relocated to the centre of the dashboard, which meant the heater controls were moved under the dash to the right of the steering column, and impact-absorbing interior sun visors were introduced. The GTR saw some minor gauge position swaps, specifically the temperature fuel gauge swap positions. This new design included a column-mounted ignition steering lock, with GTR models being equipped with the HQ GTS steering wheel, which bears a striking resemblance to one used in other GM cars, such as the Pontiac Firebird Trans Am and Formula. All other LJ variants featured the HQ Kingswood style steering wheel. For smokers, the dash-top ashtray was replaced by a pair of HQ Holden style door trim mounted units. A front bench seat was also an option, but only on the 4-door S and SL models, and you probably guessed it, with a column shift. The LJ Toranas retained a 1200 overhead valve engine with 8.5:1 compression ratio, which delivered 56 horsepower, along with the 1600 overhead cam engine, which used again an 8.5:1 compression ratio but producing 80 horsepower. And now also available was the 1300 overhead valve engine, again as you guessed, with an 8.5:1 compression ratio pushing 63 horsepower. All 4-cylinder engines used a Zenith downdraft carburettor. 4-cylinder cars all received a 4-speed manual floor shift, with deluxe models having the option of a Trimatic automatic floor shift. The base sedan, equipped with a 1200 engine, was simply known as the Torana 1200 and was only available as a 2-door model. The deluxe sedans were offered in both 2 and 4-door versions and could be had with either the 1300 or 1600 engines. Deluxe models were well equipped for their time, with features like full carpeting, a push-button radio and chrome wheel trim rings. The 6-cylinder overhead valve engines were carried over from the LC lineup, including the 2250 with 9.2:1 compression ratio delivering 95 horsepower, as well as the 2850 boasting a 9.4:1 compression ratio and pushing 118 horsepower. The 6-cylinders all received a 3-speed manual column and floor shift, with an option of either a 4-speed manual Opel and Australian gearbox or Trimatic automatic floor shift. The Torana S and SL were exclusively equipped with 6-cylinder engines. The S was available in both 2 and 4-door, whereas the SL was only a 4-door option. 4-cylinder models ran on 4 JJ by 12-inch wheels, whereas 6-cylinder models, except the GTR, used 4.5 JJ by 13-inch wheels. The GTR's earlier twin-barrel 2850S engine was now superseded by the 3300 overhead valve engine, featuring a 9.2 5.4:1 compression ratio and delivering 135 horsepower. Known as the 202 in the HQ range, this engine provided enhanced torque and greater versatility compared to its predecessor. All 6-cylinder models used Bendix-Stromberg downdraft carburetors. GTRs were only available with a 4-speed manual running through a 308/1 rear end, driving on steel 5.5 JJ by 13-inch rally wheels and shod with B70 H13 red band 4-ply tyres, which also were only available with the rally wheels. Holden sorted the suspension too, with revised geometry and spring rates to enhance stability and handling, which they complemented by a faster steering rack with a 16.5:1 ratio. Power front disc brakes came as standard on the GTR and the Deluxe Toranas, while being optional on all other models. Additionally, a limited slip differential was available across all 6-cylinder variants. As the GTR carried on, the GTR XU1 was now in regular production, with both these models only available as 2-door sedans. The Torana GTR XU1 featured a performance-tuned version of the 3300 or 202 engine, incorporating the LC XU1's advanced 186-cylinder head with a higher compression, and was equipped with triple side draft Stromberg CD175 carburetors. A high-performance camshaft, a lightweight flywheel, and an enlarged exhaust system were also installed, boosting performance and resulting in 190 horsepower, which was an exceptional feat for its era. It was through extensive racing and rallying during late 1970 and early 1971 the Holden and the Holden dealer team HDT identified and addressed weaknesses in their design in order to optimise the Torana's chances at Bathurst. This led to the creation of a special batch of LC GTR XU1s or Evolution models, consisting of 299 units manufactured between August and November 1971. These models were outfitted with Holden's latest Bathurst package. The Ford Falcon GTHO Phase 3s dominated the 1971 Hardy-Ferodo 500 endurance race. Alan Moffat beat all contenders, winning the race a lap from 2 more Phase 3s in 2nd and 3rd positions. It wasn't all bad news though, as Bond claimed 4th place outright on the same lap as the 2nd and 3rd place Falcons. Holden now aimed to challenge this dominance with a better and faster XU1 and one designed to rival the Ford's V8 powered cars. Holden's new close ratio Aussie 4-speed gearbox, first introduced in late 1971 CK Bathurst cars, and essentially an Opel based M20 unit upgraded with a refined close ratio gear set, was retained as it was considered tough enough to cope with the mild increases in power and torque of the larger 3300 engine. This gearbox frequently gets mistaken for the renowned M21 Aussie 4-speed. These enhancements incorporated various upgrades aimed at boosting both power and durability. To handle the CK's increased power and the likelihood of greater clutch strain from its taller first gear, a more robust clutch plate was incorporated. The XU1 model featured 2 functional spoilers, one under the nose for negative lift and the other on the rear lid for downward thrust. HDT also wanted a more competitive advantage over the Falcon GTHOs, and behind the scenes in early 1972, Harry Firth and Holden were hard at work on their response. This was to shoehorn Holden's compact 308 or 5 litre V8 into the LJ XU1 with an M21 gearbox, Detroit locker diff, specially ordered 13 by 6 inch Globe Sprintmaster alloy wheels, a long range fuel tank and aerodynamic aids. The proposed XU1 V8 would have been a genuine 160 mph supercar that could easily have outgunned the GTHOs at Bathurst. The V8 powered Torana GTR XU1 is often incorrectly referred to as the GTR XU2, but was officially known by Holden as the XU1 / for instance XU1 / V8 or XU1 / Series 2. However, the XU2 designation would go on to be used on another Torana, and a V8 at that. This prototype underwent extensive testing by team manager Harry Firth and driver engineer Larry Perkins, and featured in the Sports Sedan Racing Series with Brock and Bond at the wheel. While testing the V8 in a sports sedan race in the town of Bathurst, and not actually Bathurst, Harry Firth determined the car, piloted by regular HDT driver Colin Bond, achieved speeds of approximately 169 mph on the Conrod Straight, a stretch of about 1¼ miles. Making an appearance at the Easter Bathurst meeting that year, artfully camouflaged as a sports sedan in LC trim with a mock rear wing, Colin Bond was driving, and the car proved significantly faster than the 6-cylinder XU1s. It featured a full width front spoiler equipped with brake cooling ducts, elements designed to dominate a Bathurst and intended for the ill-fated road version. 3 prototype XU1 V8 Toranas were built in Harry Firth's Melbourne workshop under contract to Holden, as confirmed by Leo Pranu. They were pink, orange and dark green and were reportedly dismantled, with one being notably crashed at the Lang Lang Proving Ground. Unfortunately, public and political concerns about high-performance vehicles, known as the 1972 supercar scare, and labelling these cars as bullets on wheels, led Holden, Ford and Chrysler to abandon their planned Bathurst supercars. The backlash culminated in one of the most significant announcements in Holden's history. On the 30th of June 1972, they cancelled their plans to build the V8 Torana, a decision that triggered similar actions from Ford with their Falcon Phase 4 and Chrysler with their Charger V8, cancelling their projects too, only weeks away from production. Like Ford and Chrysler, Holden had planned to build a batch of 200 to meet the new race rules. So the question now was, what could they do with 200 sets of Globe Sprintmaster alloy wheels acquired for the V8 project? But more of this later. Consequently, Holden would postpone the release of their V8 Torana until the LH series, which would be launched in 1974, 2 years after the next Bathurst race. The LJ XU-1, powered by the new 3300 or 202 engine, made its debut in February 1972 at Surfers Paradise International Raceway, with Colin Bond unveiling HDT's new striking metallic silver paint scheme, which dazzled at the racetrack but proved less effective on a black and white telly. This is what inspired Holden's advertising agency to create a fresh new red and white livery that would go on to be cemented in history by Peter Brock's iconic Bathurst victory that same year. Later in 1972, the 4-speed XU1 gearbox was replaced by the Australian-made M21 transmission, which had adapted ratios as compared to the HQ308's M21, now pushing its top speed to 135 miles per hour. The M21 would later be subsequently made available for other LC models. The M20 Australian transmission was widely known as the Aussie 4-speed and sometimes also referred to as the M21 due to its similarities to the M21 model. During August and September 1972, Holden produced a special batch of what would be later known as 1972 Bathurst XU1s. These cars boasted enhanced springs, 13 by 6 inch Globe Sprintmaster alloy wheels, which were originally intended for the XU1 V8s, equipped with a lightweight flywheel, a reinforced engine block and a more aggressive camshaft, which increased power output to 225 horsepower. They were also fitted with Detroit locker differentials and finely tuned 355:1 final drive ratios. Fitting a lighter flywheel has a number of benefits, such as improved acceleration, faster gear changes and better throttle response, to name but a few. To reduce the number of fuel stops during Bathurst, the XU1s featured a much larger 17-gallon or 77-litre fuel tank, replacing the smaller 10-gallon unit from the GTR. These models really were what symbolised Holden's drive to dominate Bathurst. Then on the 1st of October 1972, at the Hardy Ferodo 500, qualifying conditions unfortunately favoured the Ford GTHOs, whose V8 power and new 15 by 7 inch alloy wheels secured the top 4 grid positions, with Alan Moffat claiming pole. However, heavy rain on race day turned the tide in Holden's favour. Peter Brock skillfully handled his GTR XU1 with the new livery in these challenging conditions, aided by specially ultra sticky hand grooved Dunlops imported from Japan, and secured a landmark victory for HDT. Brock also drove the entire 500 miles solo without a co-driver, which was the last time this was permitted in the race's history. His ability to navigate the treacherous conditions and maintain a consistent pace was remarkable. Meanwhile, teammate Colin Bond, lacking access to the same tyres, fell victim to the treacherous wet weather, aquaplaning and then rolling his car. This win demonstrated the exceptional balance and handling of the smaller XU1, proving it could outmaneuver its more powerful rivals in adverse conditions. This victory launched the Peter Perfect Torana legend and marked the first of what would be 5 Bathurst wins for the Torana. The Peter Perfect Torana legend highlights Peter Brock's breakthrough 1972 Bathurst victory, driving the underdog Holden Torana GTR XU1. This dominant solo win in challenging conditions marked the start of Brock's legendary career and cemented the Torana's iconic status in Australian motorsport, with Brock's nickname Peter Perfect reflecting his flawless driving on that day. Holden's advertising slogan at that time was "When you're hot, you're hot," leading some fans to mistake the HDT symbol on the Torana's rear quarters for hot. Regardless Regardless, the bold new red and white livery was a hit with both track enthusiasts and television viewers alike. In late 1972, the 1600 overhead cam engine was replaced by the 1800, technically 1760cc overhead cam variant, which was a longer stroke variant of the same Vauxhall slant 4 design. This meant the 1800 overhead cam and 1300 overhead valve engines were now the available options for the deluxe models. Additionally, the Trimatic automatic could now be paired with either engine in the deluxe lineup. From 1972 to 1974, the LJ XU-1 dominated the Australian rally scene, with the TA Toranas securing victories in the 1972, 1973 and 1974 Australian Rally Championships, establishing the XU-1 as Australia's most successful homegrown rally car. In early 1973, Holden made the larger 3300 engine, formerly exclusive to the GTR, available as an optional upgrade for both the S and SL models. The 2850 engine then became the standard 6-cylinder option. This meant the 2250 6-cylinder and also the 1200 4-cylinder engines were phased out in the domestic market, a shift that made the 1300 engine the new entry-level option. Holden had one final major upgrade in store for the XU-1 with the introduction of the new Group C touring car rules in 1973, which permitted limited modifications to enhance the performance and durability of road cars for competitive racing. To capitalise on these changes, Holden produced a batch of 150 homologation specials in August, now famously known as the 1973 Bathurst XU-1s. These vehicles represented the peak of the XU-1's development, featuring numerous upgrades tailored to Group C racing, including strengthened engines, close ratio gearboxes, reinforced rear axles, larger brakes and enhanced body bracing. These cars boasted approximately 240 horsepower, giving him an exceptional power to weight ratio. This was also alongside significantly enhanced grip from the Group C's wider wheels and tyres, making him a formidable contender on the racetrack. Despite a minor curb weight increase to 1,048 kilos, the LJ XU-1's performance closely matched its LC predecessor, with a standing quarter mile of just over 16 seconds and a top speed of 125 miles per hour. While some argue that the LJ XU-1 was more powerful than its predecessor, the LC XU-1, I've received several comments challenging this claim, suggesting the LC could definitely give the LJ a run for its money. In fully blueprinted and balanced configurations, such as HDT's series production race car, the LJ XU-1 could achieve a standing quarter mile in under 15 seconds and reach a top speed of 135 miles per hour. HDT's works XU-1s dominated the 5-round 1973 Manufacturers Championship, securing wins at Sandown, Surfers Paradise and Phillip Island. At Bathurst, Peter Brock and Doug Chivers were on track for another triumph until a fuel miscalculation forced Chivers to push his car uphill to the pits, costing HDT the race. Bond and Gagan's HDT XU-1 finished third. This marked another win for Alan Moffat and Ian Gagan, who drove a Ford Falcon XA GT hardtop to first place. The XU-1s that raced at Bathurst in 1973 under new Group C rules were the ultimate development of the breed, with potent 245 horsepower engines. However, the XU-1's triumphs would come to an end in 1974 when Brock and HDT transitioned to the upcoming V8 powered LH Torana SLR 5000, but that's another story for another day. Interestingly, if you ordered a Torana GTR with the XU-1 package, you will get a significantly upgraded car. This was more than just an option. It initiated a whole series of performance enhancements and component changes, creating a distinctive high-performance XU-1 model in its own right. As a side note, Holden also used other XU codes, namely XU3 and XU4 as option codes, but not on what you'd think. The XU3 code was primarily used in the HZ series, signifying the popular Sandman package for utes and panel vans, whereas the XU4 option was found on commercials and represented a derated gross vehicle weight, or GVW. Derating a vehicle's gross vehicle weight is basically a paperwork exercise and not necessarily a physical one. While we're talking about the GTR XU-1, how can we forget the promising Torana GTR X, a striking wedge-shaped coupe which debuted in 1970. This fiberglass-bodied rear-wheel drive coupe boasted a 3 litre or 186 inline-6 engine producing 160 horsepower, paired with a 4-speed manual gearbox running through a 336:1 limited slip diff, running on 5.5 JJ by 13-inch steel wheels and shod with C70 13 4PR tyres. Stopping was by all-round disc brakes, 10-inch front and 9 3/4-inch rear, a first for Holden, with pop-up headlights and integral steel roll bar which had the seat belts fitted to it. With a weight of just 1,043 kilos, it could reach 60 miles per hour in 8.3 seconds and had a top speed of 130 miles per hour. This was a promising concept car that never reached production. Only 3 were built, with one surviving example residing at Holden's Melbourne HQ. Ultimately, the Holden Torana GTR X's timing was its downfall. It faced stiff competition from similar sports coupes like the Datsun 240Z and Opel GT. Despite Holden's promotional efforts, including brochures and videos, the high production costs and small potential market led to its cancellation. In March 1974 came the arrival of the larger mid-sized LH series Torana and what would be the first completely new Torana body. However, the 4-cylinder models would go on. These models would be the short-lived TA series, a 4-cylinder only model produced from April 1974 to March 1975 and designed to bridge the gap between the outgoing LJ 4-cylinder Toranas and the upcoming LH series, which would also coincide with the March 1975 release of the Holden TX Gemini. This is where Holden's Torana line separated, with the 6-cylinder cars going one way and the more economical 4-cylinder cars going the other. However, as always, there is an anomaly, and this would be the Opel 1900 cam in head 4-cylinder engine, but more of this in another video. As a matter of interest, a cam in head engine is not the same as an overhead cam engine. The cam in head engine can have a cam situated anywhere in the head, whereas the overhead cam does what it says and is located over the valves and is far more efficient at high revs. The TA's body sheet metal was identical to the LJ 4-cylinder cars, featuring a new one-piece body-coloured split plastic grille with an horizontal splitter bar and updated taillight assemblies with bold silver finish surrounds. The lineup included 2 trim levels, the Torana and the Torana Deluxe. The base model came only as a 2-door, while the Deluxe was available in either 2 or 4-door options, available with either the 1300 overhead valve or 1600 overhead cam 4-cylinder engines, and both using single-barrel Stromberg carburetors. For its limited production run of 11 months, only 11,304 units were produced. As a side note, the Holden TX Gemini was released in February 1975 as a small car offering from Holden, filling the gap in their lineup below the Torana, based on the Opel Kadett C, and was available as a sedan, coupe and wagon. It offered a practical and economical option, powered by a 1600 4-cylinder single overhead cam Isuzu engine with a 2-barrel Nikkei Stromberg carburetor, which was manufactured by Nikkei Kyogo Co. Limited, a Japanese automotive component manufacturer. While not a performance car, the Gemini was popular for its fuel efficiency, affordability and relative comfort, making it a common sight on Australian roads throughout the 1970s and early 80s. Interestingly, Australasia was not the only continent to see the LJ Torana, as it would also go on to be manufactured in South Korea and sold by GM Korea in a different guise as the Chevrolet 1700, from CKD kits supplied directly by Holden from September 1972 to 1976, and uniquely a 5-door station wagon would also be available, powered by the 1700 4-cylinder Opel engine as used in the Opel Record D, which interestingly GM Korea was also building and selling at the same time. The 1700 sold poorly, primarily due to high government taxes on vehicles with engines larger than 1.5 litres, making it expensive. Additionally, the car was perceived as having a high fuel consumption and its suspension was considered unsuitable for Korean road conditions. Due to this, the car was revised in 1976 as the Camina after GM Korea had been sold to Saehan Motors. Strangely, both the new Camina and the Chevrolet 1700 were sold simultaneously, but due to disappointing sales, a smaller 1500cc engine was imported from Opel, Germany, and introduced in 1977, designed for improved fuel efficiency, but due to continuing low sales, both models were finally discontinued together in 1978. The 1700 and Camina's replacement was a 1977 Saehan Gemini, which was a rebadged Isuzu Gemini, fitted with the Opel 1500 engine. The Australian version of the Isuzu Gemini was a Holden Gemini, which brings us back to the Torana. Over 81,813 LJ Toranas were built in Australia by Holden, with only the 6-cylinder models exported to New Zealand, as a smaller 1300 overhead valve and 1800 overhead valve 4-cylinder Vauxhall Viva HC range was also sold there. The 2850 models were shipped to New Zealand as CKD kits for a local assembly, making it the first Kiwi-built Torana. Over its 3-year production period, 3,594 LJ GTRs and 2,181 LJ XU1s were manufactured, with nearly equal numbers of the LC versions being produced. Of all the Torana XU1s, only 150 1973 Holden Torana XU1 models were ever built. This is where the LC Torana and XU1 story ends, marking the end of the second generation and illustrating the Torana's evolution from an economy car to a fully fledged racing car, with the GTR XU1 marking its first Bathurst win at the hands of Peter Brock. In the next episode, I'll be exploring the LH series, which would be the dawn of the Torana's third generation, its evolution through to its first V8 engine, with models like the SLR 5000 and the race-bred L34 option.